Well, hey everybody, this is Chris DiFurio with Keys to the Shop. Welcome to another edition of Shift Break. Today's episode is brought to you by La Marzocco. They've been making espresso machines by hand in Florence since 1927. It's almost 100 years of serving coffee shop retailers like yourself with the most beautiful, dependable, and innovative espresso machines around. Machines like the KB90 espresso machine demonstrates this perfectly with the straight-in locking portafilters for ergonomics. It also has scales built into the drip tray for accuracy of your extraction. It has auto flush in the group heads to keep your group heads clean and the workflow going smoothly. And that is just one example of many different kinds of machines that La Marzocco has to fit your needs specifically. So go ahead and reach out, info@lamarzocousa.com. That's where you can go to talk to one of their salespeople, and they will get you hooked up with the right gear for sure. Again, info@lamarzocousa.com, and do please check out their website, lamarzocousa.com. Today's episode is also brought to you by Espressly, who's creating custom branded mobile apps for coffee bars to make sure that your customers' experience with the convenience of mobile ordering is also an experience of your brand, of your hospitality, and your feel of your business. That makes a huge difference. And with Espressly, you're not just another dot on the map. Your customer wants coffee, they open your app. Simple as that. It's a no-risk model. There's no setup or development fees. You get a drive-through payment scanner, receipt and label printing capabilities. All of the data is stored in the app, and it integrates with some of the world's best payment processing systems, including Square. So lots of love here. Go check them out, espressly.co. Have them get started on your app today. Again, check them out over at espressly.co. All right, everybody. Well, today on Shift Break, I wanted to cover two things, and that is I wanted to talk about faithfulness and honesty. And this is not at all related to job performance. For me, these are two things that I am perpetually challenged by. When I am tempted to compare myself to other people, to anyone or anything out there in the world, which, by the way, is now the biggest pastime of anybody who has a smartphone. You can see everyone else who seems to be doing better than you. There's a lot of jealousy out there, a lot of personal jealousy, a lot of business to business jealousy. And what it lacks is context, It lacks context because we don't know what's going on behind the scenes. And we experience this all the time when, if you remember what it was like to think, I really want to work at that place, and then you do, and then you're like, whoa, I didn't know it was like that. That just is true about all of the stuff that is life. There are the filtered versions, and it seems kind of trite now, to say, oh, well, life doesn't have filters. But yes, it does. In the biggest filter that we have is this grass is greener filter that we've always had. We've always looked at other people and assumed that they're doing better because we have the luxury of not feeling the weight of their internal dialogue and struggles and, the things that pull against their mind at night when they're trying to sleep and all that stuff. And, podcasts like this and others who highlight some of these things really help. But sometimes it's not enough to slow us down. And when we do slow down, what are we supposed to do? Because then we just feel kind of lazy that we're not hustling. So the idea is, okay, well, I'm going to slow myself down long enough to stop the voices or my own voice. And then I'm going to, I guess, pick right back up where I started. And that's been a challenge, whether you're talking about comparing yourself, like I would compare myself to other podcasts, or as a barista, compare myself to other baristas and managers and that kind of stuff. It's easy to do. But what I have learned as I've gotten older is that the journey that we're on as a business or as a person is going to be the most fulfilling when we are constantly examining ourselves for these two things: being faithful with what we've been given and what we have to do, and being honest about our motives and in our actions. So let's break it down a little bit here, okay? Faithfulness to me is to say, I am on a sort of need to know basis in terms of the end result of what I do. Sure, I have goals. I've got goals for my business. I've got goals for my family. I've got my podcast and consulting and all that stuff. I have goals. But do I think that it's going to look exactly like what I imagine? Probably not. And maybe that's a blessing in a way, just like when I first started in coffee, I thought, oh, you know what I'll do? I'm going to open a coffee shop, because that's what people do when they first get into coffee. It's like, I'm going to open a coffee shop. But boy, am I glad I didn't, because the kind of coffee shop I would have opened back then would have been, well, I think it would have been bad. And even today, were I to open a coffee shop that is like the Cristoferio coffee shop, and one day, even though I've, helped open and been part of opening many over my career, my own coffee shop, I don't know what that's going to look like. Chances are it's not going to have all of the stuff. I mean, you might even, and I don't know if you would assume this by somebody like keys to the shop, opening a coffee shop, you'd probably be disappointed in it, And I don't say that to try to be falsely humble. What I say that, I mean, I have no illusion that a voice in your head on your morning walk talking about coffee and people and management and all that stuff is part of that kind of group of people that, influence you. I won't even say the word, right? Is part of what we voluntarily engage in to help us supplement what we believe we need. And oftentimes these things are helpful, but also comes with a lot of baggage, or not baggage, but maybe it comes with a lot of assumptions. Like, oh, you could say, if this person opens a coffee shop, it's going to be so good. No doubt. I mean, I'm sure it's going to be good, but what you have in your head is probably not what it's going to be in reality, because we are not meant to create this cacophony of all the good things we've ever seen in our lives all into one big old life smoothie. That's gross. So that's why I say you'd be disappointed in some ways. You say, well, it's not what I imagined. Okay, well, that's just the way it is, because our imagination, while fun, is not necessarily the arbiter of what is fulfilling. That's why I personally focus on faithfulness. And that in its essence for me also means I'm open to things being shaped the way that they need to be shaped when I am faithful to do what I know I need to do for the people who have been given to me, my family, my friends, people in my church, people in, the coffee industry and all that other stuff. I want to be faithful to that. And what that looks like at the end, I don't know. And honesty comes into the picture when we talk about motives, really. Am I doing this as a way to get around faithfulness? Am I doing this out of a misplaced sense of urgency, like I have to keep up with the Joneses? I have to do what this person is doing because they're the number one podcast. And if they're the number one podcast, that means I got to do what they do. Or they're the number one coffee shop, or they have this product and I should have that product. Or, I should be combing, well, it's not for me really, but yeah, you should be combing your hair this way or that way. The point is that if you're honest, that means a few things. It means you're slowing down long enough to examine what's going on in your head. And if you think first, am I being faithful to the things that I've been given? You have to tell yourself the truth when the answer comes. And then you can see if the answer is no, I'm not. Now you can start creating some urgency around how can I be? Now you can go to a podcast or a book or a conversation or some things that you already have heard and know but haven't executed on. Now you can start integrating those things, knowing full well that it kind of is part of what you know will lead to fulfilling not only your responsibilities, but fulfilling you as a person. Because in the end, if you are faithful with your coffee bar, with your family, with your baristas, with everything else, and you are honest in the process, and that's a constant rhythm for you, in the end, you're going to create something that you probably couldn't have thought of before. But at the same time, if you were going to compare it against other people's expectations or even your own expectations at certain times of life, you might be disappointed. So the idea here is to pursue faithfulness and honesty constantly so that we can leave ourselves open to experience the things that we can't imagine and that sometimes our imagination won't even really appreciate. We will grow into the type of people who can find beauty and fulfillment from what is created through faithfulness and honesty. So that's just what was on my mind, and I hope that it's encouraging to you today. Keep on with keeping faithful, keeping honest, and keep creating beauty in the world, both in coffee and beyond. Thank you so much for joining me today. And as always, I will see you here next week on another edition of Shift Break, from keys to the shop.